Hello, G1024. Welcome everybody, welcome to the stream all around Azure. I'm Frank Boucher, your host, and for the next hour and a half, I have with me another cloud advocate, Laurent Bugnion. Hello Laurent, how are you?
Hey Frank, I'm good.
And it's the third time I have you on the show. Very excited to continue, even if you're telling me you don't. As
No,
joke, of
no,
course,
no,
as
that's not
joke.
what I said. I just said I can go out anyway, right?
So we're continuing to build that notification application you start showing us. I'm assuming we'll start with a quick recap, but then we're
Sure.
starting to adding more stuff. And today I think we go play in the serverless. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So, if the viewers remember, I had an architectural schema which is a little bit,
You want me
you know,
to
a little
switch
bit
to your screen, Laurent?
simple. Yeah, maybe let's do that, and then I can.
Yeah, okay,
Uh,
so we're there.
All right, cool. So the schema goes like that. So we have basically the idea is that any system can send very easily a push notification to a set of devices. That's kind of the base idea. And I use that for a number of things. Like, for example, let's imagine that you and I do a lot of video encoding, right? And video encoding takes hours and you would like to be notified, for example, when it starts and when it stops. Okay, so that's one scenario. Maybe we have long-running operations, like for example, we are deploying something to Azure. We have some systems which can take hours to deploy on Azure. Maybe you want to get notified when it's done, for example, et cetera, et cetera. So any long-running operation. And the idea behind that, it's actually an application that I'm using for myself pretty much every day, in fact. And the idea behind that is that pretty much any system can send an HTTP post to an endpoint and with some JSON, okay? Like if I take an example, GitHub Actions, for example, can send an HTTP post to an endpoint, right? And GitHub Actions are something that are triggered typically when you commit something to GitHub and then something will happen. Like for example, maybe some files are getting copied to an Azure storage, account, for example. So that's one example. Maybe you have a mobile application. Mobile applications definitely can send an HTTP request and send a post and send some JSON. Maybe you have some JavaScript. JavaScript totally supports this kind of things, for example, with the Axios client, etc. Et cetera, et cetera. So basically, Logic Apps can do that. Azure Functions can do that. So that's the idea. So this any system which is here in the top right corner, that's kind of our starting point. And then the goal is that we go to an endpoint. So that's what we are going to do today. This endpoint, it's an API. It's an HTTP REST API. And a good implementation for that, a good technical solution for that is to use serverless because it's very cheap. And it's very easy to deploy like we will see today. And then after that, because we support multiple types of devices, for example, here in the on the screen, I have Google for Android. And I have, of course, Windows for Windows 10 devices. We could also add other systems here, for example, things like iOS, Baidu, Amazon devices, which are also Android, but not using Google Play services, et cetera, et cetera. And so in order to have one single entry point for our notifications and then dispatch that to a number of cross-platform devices, we are going to use the Azure Notification Hub. And Azure Notification Hub is something that last time we already prepared. And the very first time we actually started with this Google FCM. FCM means Firebase Cloud Messaging. And the Firebase Cloud Messaging is a backend for Android devices. They also support iOS devices to a certain extent, etc. But here we are just using it for gateway because our entry point is really the notification hub, and then the notification hub is going to use the Firebase console, and then it will go to a Xamarin application. Why Xamarin? Because Xamarin allows you to write cross-platform applications with a maximum of shared code in .NET, which is my favorite language. And those are native applications. So you have a good performance, you have quite a lot of advantages. So that is something that we already implemented. We already tested that by sending a message via the Google FCM, the Firebase console, to Android, and we saw that it worked. Then last time we set up the Windows push notification system, WNS, which is also going to be an entry point or a gateway, if you want, for the push notification, but this time to go to Windows devices. And so again, we configured our Xamarin application so that it runs on Windows now. And then we tested that. So this is already set up. And then we tested that by sending a test notification to the notification hub, and we verify that it's going to Windows. And if you remember, this is where we stopped last time because we didn't have time to configure the notification hub for Android devices. So that's where we are going to start today. We are going to basically implement, if I switch color here, we are going to implement that part
so
here.
Fancy.
I know, right? This is really awesome. Which means that when we are testing now, we are going to verify that those notifications are going here to Android, and they are also going here to Windows. And then eventually, what we are going to do is go here, implement this endpoint. We are going to test that. Actually, we could say that this any system is going to be tested today because we are going to use a simple client, which is actually an extension to Visual Studio Code. So it's I don't think that a lot of people know that. Personally, I didn't know that until a few weeks ago. So for people who use things like Postman or Insomnia, which are some HTTP clients that are used for test purpose, I would say, right? Something like that. Then we will see today an alternative, which is a very simple extension that you add to Visual Studio Code and which is doing essentially the same thing, but in a very simple manner. And of course, it's a little bit less sophisticated, but it's really allowing you to very easily test things. So I would say that our system at the end of today is going to be pretty much advanced already, not totally complete, but advanced already. That's where we are going to stop. Next time, we are going to talk about this Cosmos DB database. We are going to talk also about SQLite, which is a client-side lightweight database that you can also install on Xamarin devices. And and then we'll talk about the synchronization between those. So that's pretty much what we are going to do. One thing we are going to mention today, there will be just a little bit of theory, because we are going to talk about the template for the notification hub. And the thing here is that when you send one notification, the notifications for Google, Android, and the notifications for Windows look very different. We'll talk about that. And so the notification hub has a mechanism to abstract the differences, and it's called templates. And we'll talk about that in the middle of this session, more or less.
Great. And Laurent, so today it's part 3. As you mentioned, we did a lot of work, right? So this week, if you are interested, maybe you missed the first part or the second part, or maybe you cannot stay with us for the full session today. So we will publishing. So follow Laurent and or myself on Twitter. Our Twitter handle are just under our pictures right now. We will share. So this week we will share the first episode that we did, Laurent and I. So we'll share that on Twitter because it is on YouTube, and every show are on YouTube. We are getting approved by the marketing for everything, so we will be able to share that. So if you missed those videos, you will have more information coming up.
And also one thing which is probably true is that I know for a fact that it's a little bit difficult sometimes to follow what I'm doing as I'm doing it, right? Because it's kind of hard to keep an eye on the screen, try things on another screen. So reviewing those videos later, maybe a little bit slower, taking breaks from time to time is definitely going to be helpful. I'm not going to lie, this is a relatively complex system to set up, right? There are a lot of PCs, there are a lot of platforms that are involved. And so if you want to get everything working right, This is quite good. We also have, of course, a repository, and so this repository, maybe Frank, you can put it in the chat. This repository is where you will find everything. I also started actually documenting the whole process in written form, because I know that some people prefer written to video. It's actually my case. However, I'm a little bit behind because we have quite a lot of deadlines coming up. Ignite is around the corner already, and so of course I'm progressing through that at my own rhythm. But this is the repo in the chat where you can find everything. And for those of you who watch that recorded, I imagine that will be in the show notes. How do we do it in YouTube? You have to do like that, right?
Yeah.
The show notes.
On below.
Right. That's what we do. Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Well, we'll have a
And
blog post and everything.
I'm having an Azure T-shirt.
See, that's awesome.
Right.
I'm wearing
cool.
Orange. It doesn't start the good color.
All right, so I would propose that maybe we can switch to code and see how things are running. What do you think?
Yeah.
Sounds good?
Yes, sounds fantastic.
All right, so this is the solution, and as you can see, this is a typical Xamarin Form solution. So we have one shared code project, and then we have one head for Android and one head for UWP. And you may remember that I said before that we typically, or I would say ideally, we want to do as much work as possible in the shared code project, because this is a code that we write only once and which is going to be shared with Android, Windows, and possibly iOS if that's also there. But unfortunately, for push notifications, there is a bit of code which has to be specific to Android and specific to Windows and specific for iOS, because push notifications are a very low-level service, and the reason why it's so low level is that you can actually receive push notifications even when your device is off, right? I mean, not completely off, but if the application is not running, you still receive the push notification. So that shows that there is something happening already at the system level, at the operating system level. Push notifications are really cool because the system is also going to retry a few times. And you know that probably if your device is completely off, switched off, and then you switch it on, you're going to start getting notifications. Those are the ones that you missed, right? Because there is a retry window. So it's actually pretty cool. Because there is a retry. And those notifications come with a badge, and then you can also change the badge. You can put maybe a picture, you can put an icon, you can. There is typically a title and a description, etc. So depending on the system, it can be quite advanced. So we did work in Android. We did some work in the main activity, which is the entry point for the Android application. This is where we actually created the notification channel, which is happening here, which is going to the Firebase console. So basically here the device says to Firebase, hello, if you have some push notifications, you can send them to me. I'm interested into that. I'm running that particular application. Mm-hmm. And then we did also the same thing in Windows. And so in Windows, we did that in app.xaml.cs, which is also the entry point for the Windows application. Okay. And then we abstracted the differences between Windows and Android by creating here an iNotification receiver. So it's an interface. This interface lives in the shared project code. So it lives here. It defines some events. And then in Android, we have one implementation of that particular notification receiver. We also have one in Windows. And this is what we are going to use to basically transmit the notification that we receive natively in Windows and in Android to the shared code project so that they can be handled and displayed to the user. So that's kind of where we are now. The last thing we did was add a NuGet package to the Windows application, which had to do with the notification hub. And then we said, all right, we are going to create the notification hub, and we are going to register this device with the notification hub. And so this is necessary because like this, the notification hub knows that it needs to route some notifications to the Windows side. And that's pretty much where we stopped last time. So now what we are going to do is basically do the same thing here, but for Android this time. And so for Android, if you remember, the process was like that. We have the main activity here, and in the main activity, we are going to say, hey, I want to basically create the notification channel, okay? Create notification channel, if my keys work better here, is going to go and create that notification channel with a Firebase backend. And then at some point, after a short wait, we are going to receive a token. And this token is a unique identifier for the device that is registering right now. So every Android device has a unique token. And this token is going to be received in a special type of object. It's an object which derives from Firebase messaging service, which is registered as a service. So when you see this intent filter with com.google.firebase, for example, typically it means that it's a service which is something that is going to run in the background, even if your application is not running right now. So this is a special type of device, of class, I should say. And in this class, we are going to receive the new token from the Firebase console. And so that's a way to say, all right, we are now uniquely identified with Firebase. So we know that now we are going to do some work at this point. So the work we need to do, first of all, I'm going to remove here those to-dos, and then I'm going to add here some code. So I'm going to say, all right, I want to create this notification hub, all right?
Yep.
And this notification hub comes again from a NuGet package. So here I went ahead and I actually already added that. So we added that last time into the Windows application. There is also a corresponding NuGet package for Android. And this NuGet package is this one, is xamarin.azure.notificationhubs.android. That's the one that I added. And then it allows me to create a new notification hub. In order to create a new notification hub, it's just like in Windows, we need two variables or two settings, if you want, the hub name and the connection string.
Okay.
So those values are something that you get from the portal. This is the Azure portal. This is here our resource group where we do the work for this application.
Just be careful, Laurent. There's a little delay when you show us something. Like it's a little bit after when you mention it. So if
Understood.
you switch screen, then like we cannot see as you're showing it. Sorry.
Okay, I'll try to go a little bit slower. So here we have the notification hub, right?
Yes.
And if you click on the notification hub, what you're going to see is a number of things that you need to set up. We already talked about that a little bit last time because we set up the Windows, if you remember, the Windows notification system. So we had the package SID, we had the security key. And if you go even further, there is this tab which is called Access Policies. Access Policies, it's a little bit like a connection string, which is going to identify this particular notification hub in a unique manner. And we have two of those. We have one to listen to push notifications, and we have one which we will use later from the Azure Functions to send push notifications. So the one that we want now is the one to listen. So this is the connection string that you're going to copy. The name is very simple, it's lbnotif, it's here in the overview. And basically that's what you need here to create this notification hub. Those constants here are defined in another file. Here you can see the file lbnotif and the connection string, which is here. So basically now we have established this connection. But one thing which is different between Windows and Android is that in order to create many things in Android, you need a context. And in Windows, the context is clear because in Windows, there is one application which is running. The application is the context, and that's pretty much it. On the other hand, in Android, it's very complicated because every page is a little bit like a small application. Okay, a page is called an activity in Android, and roughly said, each activity is very independent from the others. And so in order to get a context, since this application is very simple, there is mostly just one page, one main activity, I'm going to use the main activity as the context. So first of all, I'm going to declare this context property here. So let's go into the main activity.
Before you go too deep, Laurent, we had a question when you showed the notification hub in Azure. So Jonexum77 was asking, are the actual messages being stored in the Firebase or in Azure?
That's a great question. So at the moment, those notifications are not stored anywhere, which means that we are sending the notifications to the notification hub. The hub dispatches those notifications to the devices, and we display the notification in the application, but then those notifications are lost forever, pretty much. So if you remember the schema that we have here, this is something that is a little bit annoying with notifications, is that they are lost, okay? So next time, not this time, but next time, we will also save those notifications, and we'll use Cosmos DB on Azure to do that. We are not going to save the notifications in Firebase. Firebase actually has a database, but I cannot use that from Windows. And I want to use something that is really cross-platform, so I'm going to use a Cosmos DB database to store that. And then in order to save those notifications on the device as well, next time again, we are going to use SQLite on Xamarin and so on Android and on Windows. SQLite is a cross-platform database system, which is very lightweight, ideal for mobile devices. And like this, we'll have those notifications saved in Azure and also on the devices, and we'll have some synchronization between both. That's kind of the idea, because that's actually a very good question. The push notification system is not made for storing notification, all right? Those notifications are not stored anywhere. They are only stored for a short period of time, because the system is going to retry a few times. If it cannot reach your device, it's going to retry a few times. But eventually, those are just lost. And here we want to build something which is a little bit more persistent, so it's actually on us to do that, okay?
Cool. So they go in a queue while they are processed or the retry, but at some point they got deleted from there.
Yeah, cool. Exactly.
So stay tuned for part 4 or 5.
Yeah, that will be 4, I think. Which might or might not be depending on what you and I discuss, might be the last one in this series. I think it's also time to move to something else at some point, but let's just finish that one first and then we'll talk, okay? Cool, so we have the main activity here. Like I said, main activity, this is the entry point for the Android application. So I'm going to add a property which is called context, which is actually of type main activity, all right? As you can see, it is static. There is only one main activity. This is the main point. You can see it says main launcher equals true. So this is a way in Xamarin to say that, okay, this application, this activity is where everything starts when the Xamarin application is created. And then everything starts in this onCreate event handler. And so this is where I can say, all right, I'm going to save this, the current activity, as the context. And now that allows me to go back to my notification hub. And in the notification hub, I need a context where I can use the main activity.context as the context for the hub. I hope it makes sense. If you have programmed Android applications before, you know everything about context, because this is super important concept in Android programming, activities and all that. If you have not done it, just believe me, it works. But basically, I need something to pass to the notification hub. And then after that, the rest is pretty much the same as before in Windows. So here we are in Android. We need the token to register with the notification hub, and we need the tag name. In that case, I'm just using default, but we could have multiple tags, meaning that one device could also register and say, all right, if you have promotion 1, send me the notification, but not if you have promotion 2, for example, these kind of things. All right, so at this point, now we are registered, our Android device is registered with the notification hub, but one thing we need to do before we can actually try it out is configure the notification hub, because remember that this notification hub is going to receive one notification and dispatch it to many systems, okay? So just like we configured here the Windows push notification system, we did that last time, we also need to configure now the Google push notification system. And to do that, we need an API key. So this is where we go back to Firebase, firebase.google.com. That's where we all started in the very first session, right? And in the first session, we said, all right, we are going to create a new application. So I'm going to my console now, and I'm going to find this particular application. This is Learn TV Notif, which is a really awesome name. I think we all agree. Because back then it was supposed to be Learn TV, right? That's why. Okay. Yeah. That was already a few weeks ago, right? And then if you go to the settings inside cloud messaging, this is where you will find the key. This is this very long server key, which starts with AAAA. I'm going to copy it, go back to my notification hub, paste it, and then I can save. And now basically I have established a link. If we go back to this schema, we can say that we have established the link here. All right, this is the link between the notification hub and Google FCM. So that's pretty cool because it means that at this point, I could actually go and test, sending a notification. So what we are going to do, I don't really want to put Visor on this screen and share my mobile phone screen because it's a little bit heavy and I'm streaming and all that. What I'm going to do is that I'm just going to send a test notification and we are going to see if it works on my phone. I'm just going to show it to the camera. So
should I go side by side so your camera will be bigger?
No, wait, because I'm still going to show the test environment first. So down there in the notification hub, there is a test send, and we already used that. We used that last time with Windows, okay? But this time I'm going to go to Android, and Android notifications work with some JSON. So I need to take the JSON test message, which I'm going to paste here. And so this JSON test message, as you can see, there are two parts. There is one part which is the notification itself, which is going to be shown inside the toast when the notification is received. What? And then there is a data, and the data is going to be passed to the application. When you tap on the toast, for example, then the application starts and this data is going to be passed. Now, in my system, typically you want both the notification and the data to be the same. At least I assume this is what you want, but it could be different. So now you can maybe go side by side like this. It's going to be a little bit bigger.
It's done.
All right, perfect. And so when I click send, at some point we'll see, we should see a notification. So I'm going to just click send. I'm going to check.
In fact, chat, Laurent just want to show his new phone. So
yeah, exactly. It's blue. Do you see that? So here on the top bar, next to the clock in the status bar of my phone, you can see there is a white square. It's just next to the Facebook icon. Well, this white square is actually our push notification icon because we didn't define an icon yet. And so if I show you now here the push notifications, you can see that there is actually a push notification saying this is the title, this is the body, all right? And if I tap on this is going to start the application. But so far, we didn't configure the application to do something when you tap on it. Let's do another quick test. Now I have the application running. It says ready. And if I click on send,
this is the body.
We should see, voila, we see this is the body. And so this is exactly the notification that I sent, meaning that I am now able to receive push notifications from the notification hub directly. So that's yay. Okay?
Yeah.
Sweet, perfect. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a success, right?
Yeah.
These kind of things could go very wrong.
Yeah, I still don't have the sound effect.
The confetti, right? Oh, you have
I should have done that. Like it was raining all weekend. I should have done that.
I know. I'm a little bit disappointed, but it's okay.
Sorry, chat.
Anyway, I'll put confetti in your OKR for next fiscal year.
Yeah,
okay.
I need a sad trombone and some victory.
Right. Okay, so I guess at this point now we can concentrate on the next piece of the puzzle, and the next piece of the puzzle is going to be the serverless part, the endpoint here. Exactly, and so serverless, of course, is quite an exciting way to code, especially in Azure. We have a number of things. We have things like logic apps, Azure Functions. Here, we are going to use an Azure function to do that. And basically, we are going to expose this Azure function as an HTTP endpoint so that anybody can send a post message. And then after that, this is going to route it to the notification hub and then to the devices. So in order to do that, we are going to start by closing everything. Oops, I'm not sure exactly what happened here. Voila. Closing everything, and we are going to create a new project. So I'm going to create that in the same solution. Of course, you could totally create another solution if you prefer. Here, I'm just creating everything in the same solution. So I'm going to go to add new project, and we are going to select Azure Functions. Now, of course, everything I'm doing here, as always, you could do exactly the same in Visual Studio Code if you prefer. Visual Studio Code is a lightweight environment which runs on Windows, on iOS, no, not on iOS, on Windows, on Mac OS, and on Linux. Yes. You could also create that in the command line if you prefer, in the Cloud Shell, in the Azure portal. But here I'm going to do things in Visual Studio because it's an experience that we don't see very often. I would say we are not very often showing how to create new Azure Functions application and how to develop them in Visual Studio. So here I'm using Visual Studio 2019, it's the latest version. Azure Function, click on Next. And then you have to give a name to that. So let's call that, what did I call my thing? Learn TV Notif. So I'm going to say learn TV notif.endpoint, for example. All right. Now I can click on create. And now it's going to ask me what is the first function that I want to add. Now, of course, I could have a number of functions inside this, but the first function I want to add is an HTTP triggered function. And this HTTP triggered function is going to be exposed as an HTTP endpoint. So it's going to have a URL. We have a number of triggers in functions. We have things like blob trigger, for example, so that something happens when you upload a file, a blob, to Azure storage. We have Cosmos DB trigger if something changes in the Cosmos database. Event grid trigger if something happens, for example, you create a new resource, you create a new blob, etc. What do we have? We have queue, we have timer trigger if you want to do things on the timer, on the schedule. But here what we want is HTTP trigger. And in order to have functions work, most of the time you're going to need a storage account. So here I didn't create any storage account to start with. If you remember, in my resource group at the moment, I just have the notification hub, nothing else. So I don't really need a storage account in this particular session here, but I want to show you that you can do that from Visual Studio if you need to. So it's kind of an interesting experience as well. So if I go here and I click on Browse, it's going to actually show me a list of all the storage accounts that I have in my subscription. And here you see that I'm logged in with my Microsoft account. So you would log in with your Azure account. I have a subscription here. And here I have a number of storage accounts that I have access to. But the one that I want doesn't exist yet. So I can actually create it directly from Visual Studio as well. And so here again, this is something that typically I would rather do in the portal. But it's also interesting to show from Visual Studio how it works. So I'm going to call that LB Notif Store. One restriction for Azure storage account is that the name has to be in lowercase and you cannot have special characters like dashes and things like that. The subscription
the storage name is one of the more restricted, like no lowercase, no special character, like there's a maximum length, there's a few, because it needs to be unique globally also.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And they are going to validate that when you create it. So you don't have to worry to make an error. Like, for example, if I enter the first letter in, you see in the big cap, for example, they tell me that, okay, I cannot do that, and it has to be between 3 and 24 characters. So there is a validation here. So it's pretty safe. Then the resource group that I want this storage account to be created into, I want to put everything into the same resource group. Kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go and look for this lbnotif here resource group. Then I can select a location. Now I'm in Western Europe, so I'm going to select Western Europe for this storage account, as well as everything else is going to be in Western Europe. And then we have things like redundancy. Now this is a simple application. I'm going to just choose locally redundant storage, which means that my storage account is going to be put in 3 different locations in the data center, but it might be in the same data center. So worst case scenario, if the data center is destroyed by fire, or if there is an electricity issue or whatever, it's possible that, at least temporarily, that I lose my data. To avoid that, I could go and select globally redundant storage, which means that it would be in multiple data centers. But here, for this small application, locally redundant is easy enough. The chances that something happen are very low, so I'm okay. And this is not really a mission critical application. So I'm going to create that. And now this is going to basically do exactly the same thing that we do in the portal when we create an Azure storage account. It's going to allocate some resources. It's just going to take a few seconds. Storage accounts are pretty fast to create. And then after that, it's going to tell us, all right, that's ready. And then we can move on with the creation of the application, of the function application this time. Mm-hmm. So function applications are like a group of functions, all right? You can have multiple functions inside an application. And here we'll have just one, but later we can also add some. For example, when we do the synchronization between the Cosmos DB and the SQLite database later, we are going to use that as well. So here my store is created. Let's click on that. Go ahead.
You didn't specify the how they call it, I'm just trying to remember the buzzword. Like, you didn't specify if you were coding in C#, JavaScript, or the runtime.
Correct. I did. When I did file new project,
okay.
I selected Azure Functions, and then it was in parentheses, it was written C#, very small.
Okay.
That's where I specified it. So in Visual Studio, again, the experience is a little bit different. If I wanted to code here a function in another language, I would have to install the corresponding template in Visual Studio, and then it would appear as a choice. But I'm a C# person, I'm a .NET person, and so I only have C# templates installed on this machine. So when I do file new project, everything that comes is .NET Core, in fact, and C#. Later, when I deploy, I'm going to be able to select if I want to go on Windows or if I want to go on Linux, because .NET Core applications run on Linux as well. Yep. So that's also a possibility. Okay.
Yeah, it's true. I'm cool. Less familiar with the full IDE Visual Studio, and that's why I was like, hey, I didn't see any drop down. I missed it. Okay.
Oh, it's a great question. It's an excellent question, and in fact, the fact that you're less familiar with that is kind of a proof that it makes sense for me to show it, right? Because and even for me, that's an experience that I don't always use. But it is actually pretty powerful. So I know that a lot of people live and breathe in Visual Studio, and so it's interesting also to show them that you can actually
definitely
do
that
in Studio, right?
I was spending my full life in Visual Studio for many years. I'm just trying now to walk the talk and be in Linux or do something else, just to double check that everything is working, the experience is nice. So that's why I'm less used to.
So to that person who says that we have French accent, actually, to be totally technically precise, we don't, right? I have a Swiss French accent, and you have a Quebec
French accent. It's not a...
No, sorry. French people don't speak like me, right? I have an accent from the state of Vaud, which is my home. And so, we are very particular.
Oh, but in English, we have a French accent. Yeah.
I will give you that, but don't call me French, right?
No. So Laurent is Swiss.
You and I had this discussion many times, right? So that's why we are laughing about it.
Oh, Laurent is from Switzerland and I'm from Canada.
Correct.
I'm. It's so hard for me to say Canada or like to say it in English, Canada. It just doesn't go out.
No, I know what you mean. All right, so now we have the function created. The function application is there. So as you can see, it is created here. I'm going to set it as a start project because later we are going to test it locally. We are going to start it here. And so it created my function. Now, one thing that it doesn't do, which is a little bit stupid, is that it doesn't ask you the name for the function. So it uses here a generic name, function1, which is really horrible. So first thing I'm going to do is change that. I'm going to call that send notification. And I'm also going to use here the function name because this is going to be the actual name of the function in the Azure portal after we deploy that.
Okay. I think that's a problem with the wizard, like basic, because it's the same experience in Visual Studio Code. If you create the function app and agree to create right away your first function, it will be called like HTTP trigger 1. But then if you say no, I'm not creating any function, and then after that you come back and say I want to add a function, then it will ask you for the name.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. I do agree, and that's probably some feedback that we can give to the function team. So anyway, I also renamed the file because it's good practice in C# to have the name of the file being the same as the name of the class that it contains. And then here, as you can see, my function is specified with an HTTP trigger. So it's going to be exposed as an HTTP endpoint. I'm going to reformat the code a little bit to make it easier to read. And in this function, we are not going to go with get. We are only going to post things to this function. So I'm not even going to allow calling this function with a get, meaning that I remove the get parameter here.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then if I leave the route to null, it's going to have something.azurewebsites.net/API/send notification, which is a little bit too long. So I'm going to specify here a name for this function. I'm just going to say send. So the route, every time that we have /API/send, is going to go here with a post. And I don't really need all that code, so I'm going to keep just the code which is parsing the request body. So I'm going to extract the request body, which is in our case going to be some JSON file. I'm going to deserialize it using JSON convert using Newton's of the JSON, or you could use another JSON deserializer if you prefer. And this is going to be a dynamic object. So that's kind of cool in C#. Actually, you can do dynamic now. It's been the case for already a few years. So you don't have to declare a new class for that. And then what I'm going to do is extract the data. And so what I'm going to expect from my JSON payload is a body and a title. And that's pretty much it. Of course, I could expand that later with a few things. I see one more question. Why am I using a task instead of a normal function? So this is actually a normal function here,
but just because it's async, right?
It's returning a task because I'm going to do some async work, exactly. So it's an async task, but actually what I'm returning is an iAction result. So asynchronous here in this session, we don't have time to go into the whole detail of how async and await work in C#, but basically it's just a way for me to say, oh, I'm going to have some stuff which is happening, like this is, for example, happening asynchronously. I have the await keyword, but I don't have to implement a callback like I would, for example, in JavaScript, okay? So or a promise like I would in JavaScript. So here I don't need to do that. I can just continue with the flow of my code. So it's a feature of C#. Okay, so if I don't have a body or a title in the JSON request, I'm going to return bed request object result, which is going to result into an error, an HTTP error, all right? And then after that, let's continue. I'm going to get some variables. So again, I'm going to need a connection string and I'm going to need a hub name. But this time, we did that for Android just now, but this time we were on the receiving end of the notification hub. Now we are on the sending end of the notification hub. So these connection strings that I need now, if I go back to my portal, Remember, I showed you that we have two connection strings. We have one to listen to notifications. That's the one that you want to use on your client, the Android client, Windows client. And we have one which is used to send notifications. And this is the one that we want to use on our function. So I'm going to copy that. And those connection strings are typically something that you don't want to put in GitHub. All right, we talked about that already. If you put them on GitHub, it means that people are going to find it. They are going to mess with your code. It's not a good idea. So here in the functions, we actually have a mechanism to avoid that. We have this local.settings.json. And local.settings.json is a special file which is never going to end into GitHub because it is specified in the git ignore. So every time you create a function, you're going to have this local.settings.json file. It's going to also be added to the git ignore file, and basically it never ends into GitHub. What it means is that what we do here in this local settings file, we are going to have to do that in the function application as well, because those things are not going to be copied automatically. Does that make sense?
Yes. A better place would be also to put it in Key Vault. That is a service in Azure exactly for that purposes, where you have secrets. It's super easy to implement. But
absolutely,
like and definitely, like some totally secret could go in local setting.json. Like for demo purposes, definitely. And some it's totally fine. And if you want more level of security, Azure Key Vault.
Yeah, so we'll here in this session we'll put things in the application settings, but later, for example, next time I can totally show you how to put that in Key Vault. It's really easy, like you mentioned. Okay, so I need I'm going to format this code a little bit, and then I need two configuration settings. So I need the first one is I don't have it in my history. The first one is the hub connection string. Here, and this is the connection string that I just copied from the portal, so it should be in my clipboard history. Here we go. And then we have the other one, which is the hub name, and hub name is simply, I can go here and copy it from here. So this is lbnotif, voila. And so now, like this, I have configured my function application locally for local usage, which is good. So now we have those things, which means that I can create the hub. And so in order to create the hub, well, again, I'm going to need this notification hub client class. Notification hub client comes from a NuGet package, surprise, surprise, like everything in .NET. Now, one thing which is cool in Visual Studio is that if you press on Control dot or Control period, it's going to suggest how to solve this squiggly thing. And here you see it says the error is the name notification hub client does not exist here. It doesn't know this class. But if you go down there in Visual Studio 2019, you can install the package, the NuGet package directly from here, which is really convenient. So now I'm basically installing the NuGet package without having to move out of my code window. So it's kind of a nice experience in Visual Studio as well. So now it is installed, and as you see, the class has been recognized. I need to pass it the connection string and the hub name. And now I'm going to be ready to send the notification. Good. So to send the notification, there is one thing we need to talk about, and this is a cross-platform aspect of the notification hub. So as you can see here, I have Google notifications, I have Windows notifications, I could have iOS notifications, I could have Baidu notification, Amazon, Fire TV, Fire devices notifications, and every one of those has a different format, of course, because why wouldn't they, right? You know that people hate to agree on things. So to illustrate that, I prepared a couple of slides. So if you send a push notification to Android, that's the format that the system is expecting. It's some JSON format. And as I told you before, you have two parts to that. You have one part which is called notification, which is what is shown in the toast, in the UI that shows up in your notification area. And then you have the data, which is going to be passed to the application itself. And here in my system, I want the notification, what is shown in the toast, and the data passed to the application to be the same. All right, because I'm just sending a message. I want this message to be shown to the user. If the user taps on the toast, it goes into the application, and then the same data is available there.
Okay.
Now, similarly in Windows, we have also a format, and that's of course a totally different format, because why wouldn't it, right? In this case, we're going to use XML for toast. And here we define, as you can see, there are 3 parameters that we need here. One, which is called the launch parameter, which is on top here, which says hello in this example. Now, this launch string is what is going to be passed to the application when the application starts, all right? And then we have 2 additional pieces of information. We have text ID 1 and text ID 2, where we can show a title and a body. Now here I'm using one template, which is called a toast generic template. We could have more advanced templates, for example, with an icon, with a picture, with buttons like OK, cancel, accept, yes, no, etc. These kind of things. I'm sure that you all saw that in Windows notification in the bar. You can see these kind of things. We can try. I hope I don't have anything. Is it going to work or not? Maybe not when I'm in PowerPoint. But if I go here and try to show the bar, right, you see here I have a notification from Cortana, for example, and then I have 2 buttons. I can say turn off now or change focus assist. So that's one example. Or maybe I have another one here, and here I have a small picture. This is the mail notification. I have the picture of the sender, etc. So those are all tools that you can actually customize. But here for our application, we are going to use a simple toast just with a title and a body, and the launch parameter, which will be passed to the application. So we have 2 very different templates, could be 3, could be 4. And so how are we going to make sure that I'm going to dive under my desk for a moment because I'm out of power on my auxiliary device. So I want to continue seeing the stream. So give me 1 second.
So let's take the control of the stream. So what's creating a push notification for our website? Okay. So Laurent, when you come back, we have a question from Boss Fighters, who was asking, can you use this notification system from other website, like creating a push notification for any website?
Not exactly. So here, what we are doing is a push notification system, which is going to work. If I go to the notification hub, it's going to be able to use it on Apple systems, Google, Windows Phone, in case you still have one, Amazon, so Amazon Fire devices, and Baidu. Those are really push notification based systems. Now, if you want to use, like for example, in modern websites, you can have also notification system. This is a different system. And here you would use something like WebSockets. And we also have something on Azure, which is allowing you to do that. It's called SignalR, but that would be an additional piece of the puzzle. All right. So here, this is not what we are doing. You would have to add an additional piece in Azure and then configure your JavaScript, your website in a different manner to be able to do that. Hopefully that answers the question.
I don't know if it was the question. The way I understood the question was, let's say I would like to be notified with your app when some newspaper website, I'm like my local newspaper is sending notification. I cannot do that because they don't send a notification to my system. I need to build in between, an app that read those notifications and kind of inject them.
Dispatches them, yeah. No, it's correct. And in fact, what most often what people do is that they say, well, if you want to receive push notifications from my newspaper when there is a new, like a breaking news or something, you would have to install the application of that newspaper, right? That's what you would do. So then you end up with one application for, that particular news site, CNN, whatever.
Yep.
Then another application for Fox News if you want to be balanced, right? You want to have the right and the left, okay? And then you have yet another one for Al Jazeera if you want to have actual news. Did I say that? Yes, probably yes. or the BBC, etc., etc. And then you end up with 5 or 6 different things. Here, the system that I'm proposing is more like a generic client, but of course, it can only transmit the notification that I send because I'm the only one who has access to that particular system, right? So it's more in the idea of saying, well, it's not necessarily going to be used. This particular application is not necessarily going to be used to send, like for CNN to send push notifications to their app. It's going to be sent by me to monitor some long-running systems, I would say. And those systems could be things happening in Azure, could be things happening at home on my own server, if I have an encoding server, etc., etc. One thing, though, is that everything I'm showing to you here is something that you can use, dear viewers, if you're implementing an application that needs to transmit push notifications, right? So the series that I'm showing here, that's why I hope this is an interesting session, is something that you can totally use if you need. If let's say that you are the person implementing an application for a news website, and the news website says, well, I want to send notifications to people who have my app, who have our application when the breaking news happens, you can totally use the exact same mechanism that I'm doing here in your own application, all right? Cool. So let's continue. So now we are at the point where we have cross-platform templates, okay? We have one template for Android, one totally different template for Windows. And of course, the notification hub is going to need to transmit this information. So for example, the body needs to go here, here, and here, all right? And then the title needs to be here, and here, and here. And in order to do that, we are going to use something called template, meaning that each device can ask the notification hub, please give me the notification with that format. And in order to specify those variables like the body, the title, etc., we are going to use this syntax, $ and then the name of the property. All right, hopefully that is clarified. I'm going to show that with more details in a moment, so don't fret if you don't get it. So in essence, what we are going to have is those cross-platform templates. They are going to look like that. The Android device is going to send to the notification hub something and say, I need you to send me some JSON, and I want the body part. Well, body part is not a great name. I want the body variable to be at this place. I want the title to be here, and the Windows device is going to do exactly the same. It's going to say, well, I need that template. It's an XML template, and I want the body here. I want the title here, and I also want the launch here because on Windows we have this additional parameter which is called launch. Okay.
Yeah.
And the launch, we're going to have to decode it. So like I said, I want to have the same data given to the application and to the toast. And so I'm going to say, well, the launch is going to be under the form title, separation, body. And this separator here is just one character. When you implement that in production, you probably want to be a little bit more clever than that, I would say, because here, if this separator is part of the title, for example, then that's going to be an issue. But those are details, implementation details, I would say. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of the template. So hopefully that explains things a little bit. So let's go back now. I'm not going to continue in the function right now because I'm going to go into the clients and I'm going to register those templates, all right? Because now we understand the problem of the templates. So for Android, when we receive the token, and if you remember, this is what I can. Here I can go and I can add a template registration. So I'm going to register to the hub in a generic manner first, and then I'm going to ask also, and by the way, when the push notification comes, I want to have it under that format. So let's add the template here. Now the template is going to be like that. It is some JSON. I just put the JSON on one string, on one line, but it's exactly the same than I showed before. We have the notification, and here notice we have this. If I zoom in, we have this syntax here, which means that this property that the notification hub is going to send me, which is called body, is going to be put inside here in the template. And then we have the same for the title, okay? And again, in the data, we also have the title and we also have the body. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we have that, so I can say, all right, I have defined the template. So now I'm going to register the template. And as you can see, the template registration is going to use this method register template here, and I'm going to give the template to the notification hub. So that takes care of the Android side. Now let's do the same for Windows. So for Windows, we are going to go into app.xaml.cs, which is where the registration takes place. We have initialize notifications. And here it's going to happen very much in the same manner. We have here the register method for the notification hub. So I'm going to define a template for Windows. And this template is going to be, again, it's going to be, this time it's some XML, but again, it's going to use this syntax here to take care of the parameters. So here I'm going to have launch, I'm going to have title, and then I'm going to have body, okay? Mm-hmm. So this syntax here is common to every platform, but the rest which is around it is specific to each platform. Here in that case, in Windows, we need some XML. And so same thing again, I can go down to initialize notification. After I register to the hub, I can say, and now I also want to register this template. So when you send me a notification, please use the template that I just gave you. So now my client is ready, so I can go back to my function, to my server side, because now I understand that we have the hub. Now we can send something. So how am I going to send this information? Well, first of all, I know that I need a body, a title, and a launch. Okay, this is a common denominator into those cross-platform scenario. And I'm going to save that into a dictionary of string. The key is a string and the value is a string. So basically, let me explain what I'm doing here. I am reading from my JSON payload the body and the titles that I need to pass to the mobile device. Then I compose a launch attribute using the separators that I mentioned before. And then I'm passing to the hub body here, title here, and the launch parameter. And then this is going to be packaged. This is going to be pushed in the template to Android and in the other template, in the XML template to Windows. Okay, like I said, this is relatively complex. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, I kind of lost the chat right now. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them, and Frank will pass them to me.
But then I will pass right away that somebody really liked the stream. Enjoy.
All right. Well, I'm happy to hear, because this is complicated stuff. So hopefully it doesn't come across as too complex. It's a little bit complicated to explain. But again, right, we have tons of information about that. We also have doc links and everything. Cool. So once this is prepared, I'm going to send the notification. So this line is a line which is actually sending the notification. Notice that this happens asynchronously. So again, we have this await keyword, which avoids us to have a callback or a promise or things like that. It's just the way that we do things in C#. And then the outcome is something that comes back from the notification hub. Typically, it's going to be completed with either completed, and then it means that all the notifications left already the notification hub to go to the devices. Typically, we're not going to get that. We're going to get enqueued, because notifications are essentially, they are not in real time. Okay, there can be a delay of a few seconds or maybe sometimes even a few minutes. For example, if the device is not available on the network at the moment, the next time it comes to the network, it's going to receive the notification. So typically, we are going to receive notification enqueued for sending. And possibly there will be an error message also. It could be the case if something goes wrong. So we are going to return that result to the user. Okay? So now at this time, we have everything that we need. So we can actually test things out. So how are we going to test things out? Well, the cool thing is that I don't even need to deploy to Azure to test. I can try everything locally on my PC, which is really a very neat thing with Azure Functions, okay?
Yeah, indeed.
So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have two instances of Visual Studio. I'm going to have one instance, which is this one, where the function is defined as a starter project, and I'm going to put a breakpoint in the function, all right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to open the same solution inside another instance of Visual Studio. Oops, not this one. Which one is it? This one here. Mm-hmm. So exactly the same solution, same code, same everything, in another instance of Visual Studio. And here I'm going to run the Windows client. Okay, so I have a client server running on my machine, and both are actually getting debugged at the same time. Like, this is a great debugging experience because it's going to allow me to really go step by step into what's happening. Okay?
Yep.
Cool. So let's wait until Visual
Did I lost you?
Studio is a little bit time, but basically now here I'm going to select the UWP, the Windows application, as a startup project, and I'm going to put a breakpoint in app.xaml.cs, which is basically where that's the entry point for the application. As soon as the application starts, here I want to check what's happening. So let's go and put the breakpoint here in initialize notifications. Okay, actually it's already there. Good, so I'm going to run my function. So let's go and run the function in debug mode, all right? So what's going to happen here is that Visual Studio is going to start the Azure Function runtime. And that's a really cool experience because the runtime is something that normally you have on Azure, okay, in the cloud. But when you install the development tools for Azure Functions, if you do it with the Cloud Shell, with the command line, with Visual Studio Code, or with the full Visual Studio, you also install the Azure Function runtime. And that's exactly the same runtime that is running in the cloud. So it really allows you to debug step by step with exactly the same experience than you would have in the cloud. So this is really, really very powerful. So here it's taking a moment. Again, sorry about the slow, I would say the slow pace of my machine. It's a relatively old machine. I'm due for a new machine very soon. So here we see that it's starting up, all right? And because I have an HTTP triggered application, I also have here an HTTP address, a URL, which I'm going to copy, all right? And I need to basically hit this address with some JSON payload. So how can I do that? Well, this is the point where we talk about this HTTP extension that I mentioned before, which is absolutely awesome. It's a test client. So here, for those of you who already worked with HTTP APIs, you know that there are a number of clients that you can use with that, for example, to test, right? Like Postman is personally one that I like a lot. I know that you, Frank, you like Insomnia quite a bit, right? It's an open source client.
Like I've been using Postman for a while and just discovering right now Insomnia, and yeah, like I'm not like only Insomnia. I'm not saying it's bad or good. Just saying.
Absolutely, like always. I mean, it's good to have choice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing which is cool, and that's my good friend Johan Lahorsa, who is also a cloud advocate, who showed me this extension, is that you can actually send this kind of test messages directly from Visual Studio Code. And to do that, we are going to use an extension. So in Visual Studio Code, if you want to enhance your experience, you can install extensions. For example, I have, as you can see here, I have a number of extensions. I have Azure account because, of course, I want to log into Azure from Visual Studio Code. I have Azure databases, all right, so that I can connect to Cosmos DB, for example. I have Azure Functions, Azure Logic Apps. But there is also some third-party extension, and the one that I want to show you now is this REST client by Mr. Huaqiao Mao. And as you can see, it's pretty popular. It's been installed 1 million times already, right? So it's pretty popular. It's an extension that you install. And what it's going to allow you is to send HTTP request, either in a very simple format here, it's just a GET, or in a more complex format, here you have, for example, a POST, which is actually exactly what we want. So how does it work? Well, once you have installed this extension, we are going to go, and anywhere in the code, I'm going to add a file. And so that's actually pretty cool thing, is that this file is going to be put, it's just a simple text file. It's going to be under source control automatically. So I'm going to put, and I just name it api.http. It could be anything.http, as long as the extension is HTTP, all right? And then after that, in there, I'm going to start saying, what do I want to do? So if I just paste a URL, it's going to send this URL as a GET. You see, it says on top here, it's going to send GET to API send. Now, I don't want to send a GET, because if I send a GET, it's not even going to arrive in my function. Yeah, because I specified my function wants only POST, all right? So I'm going to put here in the beginning POST, all right? And now this is a standard format for HTTP requests. I'm going to post this URL. But even better, I can specify the format of the content that I'm going to send. And to do that, we have some IntelliSend. So if I type here content type, you see it does autocomplete. And I'm going to send application JSON. And again, it does autocomplete for me. So that's pretty cool. And then I'm going to put the content that I want to send. So this is some JSON. So I'm going to say title.
And that's
then what is the title?
Is because your extension is HTTP?
Yeah, correct. Okay. Everything you do is this HTTP file is going to be under the control of this extension here. So what do you want me to send? The title here, what should it be?
Well, I should ask the chat. So chat, we need a title quickly, and I'm assuming a body too.
A few seconds. Okay, I'm just going to prepare the rest while we are at it. Okay, so the other one is going to be body. All right. So for the body, I'm going to decide myself. I'm going to say this is just for test. And for the title, do we have somebody already?
Just a title.
What?
What comes up is just a title.
Just a title. Why not? I'm all for pleasing the crowd. Okay, cool. So this is the request that we are going to send, right? So now we have the client is ready to send the request. The function application is ready to receive it. The last piece that we still don't have is this Windows application. We need to start it too. So I'm going to start it now on the local machine. And if I wanted to test the Android application, I could do the same. I could set the Android application as a startup and then start it also in debug mode. All right, so it works exactly in the same manner. So let's just wait until the Windows application starts. The Windows application is going to start. The first thing it's going to do is going to go into initialize notification. It's going to register. So we are going to step through that to see everything. And then when this is done, we will have the experience of sending our notification. I hope I didn't forget anything, but I think we're okay. So here is the Windows application. Okay, the icon is just a generic Xamarin icon. We didn't change it. There is, of course, a lot of work to do to customize an application, right? So let's see what's going on. We see that
episode 20 of our series.
Yeah, I don't think we'll do that, but anyway, we can talk. Okay, cool. So now I'm inside my application. So here, don't get confused. We're in the client application. All right.
Okay,
so
client.
Press F10. We create the channel. Okay, the channel. We register for the push notification received event. Then we create the notification hub. We register with the notification hub. Notice that this is asynchronous. It takes just a couple of seconds, all right? Then we register the template. This is also asynchronous. And then when we are okay, we use this receiver, which is again an abstraction. It's a cross-platform implementation to raise the notification. And we say, hey, we are ready to roll. And now my application is showing the text that I just gave, okay? So the application is running and ready to receive. Now I have another breakpoint in channel push notification received, because that's going to hit on the client when the notification actually arrives, all right? So now let's go into my test client. I'm going to send the request. Notice that I send the request to localhost. Nothing is going to Azure yet. I'm just running locally, all right? Boom. Now, again, don't get confused. I'm inside the server side of my application. This is my function application. I receive the notification, I receive the message from my test client. So I'm going to decode it. So let's go into it. I extract the request body. I deserialize it to this data. I get an error, apparently. No, it was just taking a small moment. All right, so now I have the body which says this is just for test. I have the title which says just a title. I'm going to get the connection string and the hub name from my local settings, all right? Create the hub, create the properties.
But the hub
and
client, yeah? Like yep.
Correct. And then I send the notification to the hub, and then the hub is going to dispatch that. Right now, I just have the Windows application running. But actually, remember I told you that my phone was running the Android application. It's actually running in the back end, in the background. And so I'm also going to receive the notification on my Android device. So it's important to know. Let's send the notification now. I just press F5. Now I am inside the client. Notice that now I hit the breakpoint in the client. So again, you need to keep track of where you are. I'm in app.xamarin.cs in the Windows 10 client, okay? I'm going to check, is it a toast? Yes, it is. I'm going to extract the launch attribute, and then I'm going to give the launch attribute to my application. And you see I have just a title, and then the separator, and this is just for test. So again, I will have to decode this launch attribute, but most importantly, if I go here, you see I have the toast, just a title, this is just for test, and basically I received this notification right now at 21:20. It is 21:20 here locally, so my toast notification worked as well. Now, interestingly, because I already installed the application, the complete application on my Android device before, it so happens that I also received, I don't know if you can see it, but it also says just a title, this is just for test. So I received the same notification on my Android device as well. What it means is that if I go back to this schema, it's actually pretty magical. I don't know, I get pretty enthusiastic about these things because it means that my notification hub actually did what it was supposed to do. It sent one notification to Google, one notification to Windows. If I had also configured Apple with the Apple notification system, it would have sent a notification to Apple as well. So basically, now I have one single entry point which is able to dispatch to multiple systems, and that's a pretty nice achievement, I think, at this point.
Yeah, pretty cool. So we had the end-to-end, and because you had everything in one solution, that's why we were able to track in all the steps, like all different component, local, serverless, and everything. Pretty
Absolutely.
awesome.
So that's pretty cool. But obviously now I'm running everything locally. So the next step would be to go and deploy that to an Azure Function application. All right. We probably would have time to do it because it's fairly quick, but I also don't want to overload people too much. What do you think? Should we deploy the function application?
I think we should. Like we have 5 minutes.
Nah, 5 minutes is a little bit short, I think. So maybe let's do that next time. Right now we have everything running locally. We are pretty happy because we know that next time when we push it to Azure, it's going to work in exactly the same manner. The only difference really is going to be that this URL is not going to be localhost :7071. It's going to be something.azurewebsites.net/API/send. But if I move this URL to another one, to the correct online URL, it's going to work in exactly the same manner. And you see how easy it is to send a notification to my devices. Now I can do that from here. I could do that from a Logic app on Azure. I could do that from a JavaScript website. I could do that from literally any system that can send a post notification can do that now. Yeah. Okay.
Really cool. So chat, if you have any question, now it's the time. It was open all along, but now the floor is yours. We're done, so we're just here to answer your questions. Like I said, that video and the 2 previous part will be available on the Microsoft Developer channel on YouTube. It will be archived here on Twitch for a little while. I think it's 10 days or something like that, and then it will go in on YouTube. We'll have a small blog post, and or like if you're already watching that on YouTube, all the link are in the description. So like the GitHub repo, and like if you want to know more about the notification hub or the Xamarin, whatever, like all links will be there to help you. So in the chat, sorry.
And if you go to the GitHub repository, this is where you find the whole code. I did, by the way, that can be also interesting for the people to know, if you are following through
developer. Whoop, did I lost you, Laurent? Oh no.
Okay. Sorry?
No, you froze for a second.
Hello? Oh, I froze for a second. Sorry about that. Like I said, my machine is getting a little bit old,
at that point, it could be mine too, because I'm hosting you and the stream and recording. And
so if you show my screen to the users, I don't know if they can see my GitHub repository right now. But the point was that if you're in the GitHub repo and you go to tags, I actually tagged like session 1 is basically what we did in the first session. So if you follow step by step, if you download here the state as session 1, this is what we have after session 1 was complete. Session 2, again, after session 2 was complete. Session 3, this is what we did right now, okay? So you can download the full code, or you can download also intermediary steps if you prefer. And even better, in the repo, you also have some explanation.
Wow.
On what to light up, because I'm quite busy with other stuff. But I am going to complete that as we go. So there are already quite a lot of explanations. A little bit of the schema that I was just showing before is there as well. So there is quite a lot of explanation there, which makes things maybe a little bit easier to understand if you didn't catch everything on the video.
Excellent. And like people were saying, like the suspense is real. I can't wait to see the real deployment.
Cool. Well, one thing I can do is that I can show you the application that I actually implemented for myself, because this application is not just for free. I mean, it's not just like for no reason, right? I'm actually using something based on exactly this code for myself. So I have here the application, and I have some things. So here I have, for example, notification receive. I'm not showing too much because there is stuff that
are your private notification.
Well, you know, I have some downloads which might or might not be legal where you live. They are legal where I live, but not necessarily where you live. So, but anyway, this application actually exists and runs, and I have, again, it's cross-platform, so I have the same application running on Android and on my Windows machines. I can install this application on any number of devices I want, really, and get the notifications. I think we saw last time in the notification hub that in the free tier, we can support up to 500 devices, something like that.
Yeah, it's a big
if you
number.
need more devices, or if you need really a lot of notifications per month, then maybe you have to pay something at some point. But the free tier is pretty generous and allows you to do a lot of work for free.
Yeah, for a small business or like just a developer, there's plenty of room to have fun. Or cover your needs.
And similarly for the function that we implemented today, by the way, this function is going to be billed only when it runs, and it's not going to run for a long time. You saw what it does, right? It receives some JSON, decodes the JSON, and transmits that to the application hub. It's literally a fraction of a second when it runs. And since you're billed by the time that it runs, and since you have also a free tier for functions as well, it means that personally, for my own usage, I'm never going to pay 1 cent for that. But if really you have a firm where you send like thousands and thousands and thousands of notifications, at some point we are going to ask you, of course, to pay a little bit of money, because like I used to say, I have kids and they also like to eat. And so we need to get some money at some point. But it's just that it's actually a very nice model, because as your business grows and as you earn money, then you can pass us some of the benefit. But if you don't make money, if you're a startup, you're very much in the beginning, you don't have customers, then you can run those services for free. So it's pretty cool.
Excellent. You cannot share any link.
Link about what?
No, there's someone say guys without hat, but trying to share some links URL in the chat, they won't work.
No,
Laurent,
yeah.
Thank you a lot for sharing all the how you build that excellent notification app. Chat.
Thanks.
Welcome for being with us today. It was awesome. Thank you for your great questions. It was really appreciated. We see that
Absolutely.
You're listening and everything. And hopefully we'll have Laurent one more time with us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to take a quick break of streaming for the main reason that I'm going to be super busy until Ignite, pretty much. Which for me, the deadline is really end of August. So I think that we'll see each other again beginning of next month, September, something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. As long as we see you again, well, I think we'll be fine with that.
No, I'm still going to be here. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, and see you next time. Tomorrow, I'm receiving Maxime Rouillet, and we'll be talking about durable function. I had a little.
Oh yeah, that's his passion, right? He's very passionate about durable function, and durable functions are absolutely awesome. So I use them too. I really like it, and Maxime is great for that.
Yeah. So see you
There's going
tomorrow.
to be another French accent, right?
Yes, it will be this week. Yes, it will be a French accent for me twice.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye bye.